Hi, welcome to Undead Yarn. My name is Heidi, and you can find me as Knitty Girl on Ravelry and Knitty Girl 1 on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Hi everybody. It's been a while. I almost didn't record today, but I think I probably should because the next podcast is going to be a little bit later. I'm probably not going to be able to record again until after Christmas. So, hello. I'll go ahead and get started and go right into my works in progress. The first one is Via Hunt by Martina Bim, and I've shown you guys that one a couple of times, but I have knit on it a little bit. And it's in my Rain Lover Knits bag. And it will probably stay there until it gets so big that it can't fit. I don't know if it's going to get that big. This seems to be able to squish up pretty easily. So it probably doesn't look any different from the last time. It's just grown a little bit longer. It's still pretty much the same. It looks the same. It's just a little bit longer. I should do like I've seen other podcasters do and put a little marker in for where I am, so that when I show it next time we can see where I am, so that at least I'll feel like I've made some progress. This is one of those plops, as I think it was somebody Trout says, project long-term. Basically it's a long-term project. I forget what all the letters stand for. So I've been working on that, and then I'm going to start. I wound the yarn. I haven't started it yet, but I did post a joke on Instagram that since you finish a project, shouldn't you start another one? No, not when you have so many hanging around. But anyway, I'm going to. This is my Undead yarn, the DK weight, and this is a neon version of the Shire, so I guess this is the Neon Shire. And the colors are not showing up as bright as they are for real. It's hard to get the neons to always show as bright as they are. But I've been very happy with the way most of the stuff that I've been showing has been showing up. It's a green, and it has like the Scoldish brown. It's basically the Shire, but I used neons instead of the normal colors I use for when I normally dye this. And I'm going to be knitting Mirabelle, and it's by Stephanie Pelkman. And there are already, I think, about 40 of these knit, and most of them are knit with solid yarns, but there were a couple that were knit with variegated, so I'm looking forward to knitting that, and I'm really looking forward to wearing it because I kind of like that it's a poncho style. I believe it's basically two rectangles. You can see there's some feather and fan detail in there. It's basically two rectangles that you put together. So that is on the needles, although it's on my crummy needles. Oh. Boy, really? I really hate these cords. That's all I have right now. I should have, when I bought, oh, I forgot, I did buy a whole bunch of the Chigu needles, but I didn't get 10s. I got the kinds that I normally use, which is basically I use between 1s and 9s most of the time. Wouldn't you know, I take a project where it needs a 10, and I can't find my Addy Clicks 10s, so they're obviously in a project, and I can't find my other 10s because they're obviously in a project. So this is all I have until I guess I either get to the yarn shop or Tuesday morning or something to pick up another pair. Anyway, those are the two things I am working on right now, but I do have a finished object, and it's one I've been showing a couple of weeks, and no, I didn't finish it in time for Thanksgiving like I wanted to, but I just finished it this morning, the last one this morning, but I love them. It's interesting, I was looking at my project page, and I think the last few finished objects I have all have very similar colors in them. which isn't surprising, knowing my favorite colors. I've been kind of indulging myself, I guess, with my favorite colors. And this is Kirby Werby Yarns, and that's pretty true to color, except it's the yellow's a little bit more gold than that. It's a more of a gold color than a yellow. And this is in her sock base. It's called Playing in the Leaves. I absolutely love the way they came out. They look amazing. I used an afterthought heel and just a regular toe. I was saying on Instagram, I've done a lot of socks. I've been knitting socks since probably the year after I started knitting socks, and I've knit. The beginning, I wanted to knit a bunch of pattern socks. First I got used to knitting socks, but then I wanted to knit a bunch of pattern socks. I think it's kind of when the whole cookie egg craze was. So I knitted a lot of pattern socks. So I've knitted in, a lot of the pattern socks had different heels and different toes. I know I've knitted like a star toe, and then there was another toe. I want to say it's called a reinforced toe, but I'm not sure. It looks like the one that you get from store-bought socks, where it goes up and around and then you graft it together. I don't like that, and I don't like that toe at all. In the star toe, I didn't feel like it left enough room for my toes. It seemed to be kind of flat. It was neat looking while I was doing it because it makes a star shape, but I don't like the way it fit. And as far as heels, I've done a lot of heels. I don't know all the names of them. I've done the, of course, the heel flap, which was the first one I did, the heel flap with the short row heel. And then I've done, this was one of the later ones I did, the afterthought heel. And this one I decided to try because I wanted to, have more control over the stripes in the socks. My socks don't have to match exactly, but I kind of like having the, at least having the stripes look even. Because I don't think I even started these at the same place now. They started at a different place. Although they seem like they ended pretty similar. So, sidetrack. I've done the heel flap. I've done the afterthought heel. I did a short row heel that I don't believe had a gusset, and I did not like that at all. It fit really wonky. I've also done, I'm not sure what the heel is called. There's a heel that you can do in a basic toe up pattern that was not, I don't believe I'd done it before, but it was really easy and it fit well, but I don't know what it's called. So basically I've done quite a few different heels and toes. At this point, I think I really don't have any need to try a new toe. People have been bugging me to try the Fish Lips Kiss heel. Maybe I will. I just hear 19 pages of pattern, and I'm like, really, I don't want to read 19 pages of pattern. But somebody, I can't remember which podcaster, maybe it was Coggy from the High Fiber Diet, said that you don't have to read all that stuff. You can skip to the pattern or something. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll do it. I think I'd be more inclined to do it if I didn't like the way these heels fit. But I don't know why. For some reason, the afterthought heel fits good, and I really like the heel flap because when you do an eye of partridge heel flap, it makes it stronger so that if there's rubbing on the back, there's the friction is cut down and like you don't get holes as easily. So anyway, that's my whole thing about socks. But I love socks. I'm gonna cast on another pair, probably with the Fiber Nymph Dye Works colorway that I showed you guys. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it has reds and greens for Christmas, but it's not like the screaming reds and greens. It's more subtle and kind of different red, not like bright red, bright green colors. I believe there's 3 colors in it maybe. But anyway, I should have that next time to show you guys. So in the next couple of weeks, sorry, I'm opening something. I'm thirsty. I'm gonna have I've been trying to give up soda, so I've been drinking a lot of sparkling water because I still like to have that carbonation. Anyway, oh, I don't have any spinning, but I am up to the week in review. If you saw my pictures on Instagram, you know that I went up north for the holiday. We actually went up for the week, the whole week. We left on Monday and came back on Friday. And we went to visit my mother-in-law and, not my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, her husband and 2 nieces. One of my nieces, the older one, she's 7 right now. She has learned to knit, and she actually called me on my birthday to show me that she was knitting. So I dyed up a skein of yarn for her in yellow because that's her favorite color. She told me her second favorite color. Her favorite color is gold. So anyway, but she was happy to get it, and we spent a lot of time together knitting. That was a lot of fun, and she wrote me a thank you note, and I showed that on Instagram too because I was very touched that she would think of writing a note to me. It was, I guess on Thanksgiving, the kids, the day before our school let out, they had to write what they were, a letter or a card to somebody they were thankful for, and she picked me. Oh, it was so sweet. Well, as far as I know, she didn't write one to her parents, but I'm sure they get them all the time because she's a sweet kid. Anyway, that was one thing that we did, but another thing was that's actually, and I think I've talked about this before, this is where my husband and I met. We met while he was going to Northeastern University in Boston. And one of my friends from Albany was his roommate, and that's how we met. And we used to go down Newbury Street and go to Copley Square because he worked over the Kinko's by Copley Square. And we used to also go to this bar, restaurant type place called the Poorhouse. So we went and walked by all those places, and it was a lot of fun, kind of reliving when we were dating. That was fun. And then we also, on Thanksgiving Day, we drove up to New Hampshire to have Thanksgiving with his cousin and their family. And they have 2 little girls too, so it was all girls. And then when we were coming back, actually on Thanksgiving Day it was snowing, so it was kind of nice to see snow, and we watched the kids play out in the snow. But it was nice not to go out and like be in the snow or have to drive in it, because I have lots of memories of that and I don't miss it. I like being warm, which is one reason why I wanted to move to Texas. So, well, the other being that most of my parents' family lives down here too. And which, by the way, this weekend we are going to my cousin's new place. They moved to Austin, and we're going to see them because they're having a party. So that'll be kind of nice to see more family. And that's basically all we did in the last week. You know, then we just went back to work, and I don't think we did anything else extraordinary over the weekend. I think we just kind of recovered and picked up around the house and stuff. Oh, somebody had asked, there was somebody who, I wrote in the thread, in the Ravelry group, I wrote a thank you thread to everybody because I'm so grateful for all of you guys that are in my group and all the nice feedback I get and the chatting. And I also want to say you guys are welcome to start a thread in the group if you ever want to. I don't mind. I think, like in the past, there were a couple people who started threads, but people usually just wait for me to put something in, and you don't have to wait because I want everybody to be talking to each other. That's one thing that I've really found that's been really neat about podcasting, getting to know other people. I've made people that I consider my friends through the podcasting world and through Ravelry, so y'all can talk to each other too, not just to me. I would like that. Somebody did ask, anyway, boy, I'm just going all over the place today. Anyway, I wrote in the Ravelry thread that I was real thankful for you guys, and I also wrote in there that if you want to know anything, you can ask me, you know, within reason. But somebody did put a good question in, and she wanted to know, and I can't remember if I can't remember exactly who it was. I'd have to look it up. But thank you for the question. And I remember the question was, when did I start knitting and what got me into dyeing? And I believe I answered what got me into knitting in the first episode, but I'll go over that a little bit here since it's been a while. I was basically looking for a hobby. My husband is always doing some entrepreneurial things, and so he's busy a lot of the time. We do spend time together in the evenings and on the weekends, but a lot of times he's working on a side project. He likes to freelance, or he used to freelance, and then he did a comic book, or comic books. He did that for several years, and now he's working on an app with one of his friends. So he always has these side projects, and I didn't really have any side projects that I was working on. Basically, I would read and watch TV, and I wanted something else that was interesting, to keep me happy and interested. And I tried a bunch of different hobbies, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because when I started knitting, I found here in Austin, they had just started an Austin knitting and crocheting meetup group, and maybe that had to do with camaraderie. I don't know. I just really enjoyed going and knitting, and actually I enjoy the whole process of knitting and making products too. And I don't know what it was, but I felt like I found another thing that I just absolutely loved. And I always fantasized that I would have a podcast, but back then I was, a little bit different, younger, obviously, and not as self-confident. So I'd always think about it, and I'm like, I won't do that. I don't know. But I've always wanted to have a podcast since about maybe a year after I started knitting, because I've been listening to them since 2006. And my first podcast I listened to, I think, was Stash and Burn. And the next one I remember is the Knitmore Girls. And those two are still around, although Stash and Burn does not record as often since they both have families. So that's how I got started with knitting. I just was trying different things, and I bought one of those teach yourself how to knit books at Tuesday morning, and I taught myself to cast on. And I couldn't do the long tail cast on because the directions, can you imagine doing that from directions in a book? I just couldn't get it. So then I turned the page. I was like, ugh. Turn the page, and there was a knitted cast on, and that's the one that I normally use. Now, I do know a lot of other ones. I have used a lot of other ones. I've used the provisional cast on. I have used the cable cast on. What else? There's some I don't know the names of. I have done the what is that cast on I'm thinking of? The one that's for Magic Loop that is for toe-up socks. I can't remember the name of it right now. I think it was Magic Cast On. Judy's Magic Cast On, maybe. I don't like that one. I didn't do that one very well. And then there's this other one that I learned when I was doing, recently when I was doing toe-up socks, but I don't know what it's called. And I think that's all. I think I've tried other ones, though, but, backwards loop, but that's like the crappiest cast on ever. You don't want to do that unless, I guess if you're teaching a really young person to knit and you're worried that that they might not remember it, but that's a really crappy cast on. And in fact, I took a class from Sally Melville who said that the long tail cast on is akin to the backwards loop cast on, that they both end up looking sloppy, and they both don't have they just don't have a very good structure to them. She said, and this is just what she said. She said that in Canada, people don't really use, they really don't use that cast on, the long tail cast on, that they generally use the knitted cast on. And I found it's nice. It looks nice. It doesn't look funny, And I use the cable cast on when I'm going to do a sweater or something, because that's really sturdy and it looks really good. But the knitted cast on has enough give that it's pretty good. So that's how I learned how to knit. I basically learned it from the book. I learned how to do knit stitch, and then I think I was purling the wrong way, and so when I went to that meetup group, somebody showed me how, and so ever since then I've just kept going with it. I just really loved it. I thought it was so cool that you could just pick a pattern and make something with yarn, and now I've just like love yarn. I have yarn everywhere. And that's what happened with my knitting. And then as far as dyeing goes, I really was kind of getting to the point where I myself was considering a business, and I thought I would try to be a designer. And so I took some classes on design and how to get your work out there and everything. And I don't know, there was something about, I guess I was looking at, there's a lot of designers out there and not a lot of them make a lot of money. Or their patterns don't get huge. So I thought that seemed like a difficult way to make an income. And I just started playing around with Kool-Aid dyeing, and I did that for about 6 or 7 months. And I got some really amazing results, and I have some really cool things that I dyed then. Maybe I'll show them on another podcast, because I still have most of them. I've knit with some of them. And the interesting thing is that a lot of people say that if you knit with Kool-Aid, it will fade over time. Well, it's kind of faded, but not all of them. Some of the things that I've made from the yarn that I've dyed have not faded at all. So I wouldn't take it for granted that Kool-Aid, I wouldn't like push Kool-Aid dyeing aside and say that it's not worth it, because I think I've had some good luck with it. But I really wanted to make a lot of different colors, and there were colors I found that I couldn't make no matter what I wanted. I could not get a good black. I could not get a good gray. The reds, it's funny, the reds came out pretty good in Kool-Aid dyeing. Reds are a little harder with the acid dyes, but maybe it's because I'm looking for something more precise now. But I couldn't get the colors I wanted, so that's when I was like, well, maybe I really am enjoying this dyeing. It was so amazing to me to like just put colors in and see how they came out, and I loved it. So that's kind of how I got into dyeing. I was just kind of playing around with yarn and with food coloring and with Kool-Aid dyes at first, and then I decided I wanted to start trying the acid dyes, and once I did a couple of those, I was like, I really want to do this. So that's when I decided to start my business, and figured, well, if I'm starting a business, why not do a podcast? And at this time, I didn't feel nervous about it anymore. Maybe it's because I had found what I wanted to do. I don't know. Maybe that's what finally pushed me into it. But I also think it's just getting older, and as you get older, you get more confident. So that's how I got into dyeing. I was going to talk about the books I've been reading and the movies I've been watching. I forget some of them. I think we watched more over the holiday than I can remember, but I do know that we finished season 6 of Sons of Anarchy, and there was something that happened in the last episode that just made me sick. So I can see why there's only one season left. Things are not going well for the Sons. If you want to talk about it, email me or put it in our group, because oh my god, I would love to talk about that. It's totally like watching a train wreck. And the other thing that I've been watching season 4 of Lost Girl still. And the only movie I can remember that we watched in the last week is The Shining. I got that from the library. Actually, it's funny, I had it on hold for a really long time before it finally came up. And I watched it, and it was good, but it's slow, and, it's dated. It's interesting to see it now and to see the people who are in it. It's still creepy, but it's not a fast-paced horror movie. It's more one of those slow-building, tension-building type of stories. So that was not bad, not great. I'd probably give it like 3 stars, maybe 3.5. Because it's good, but it's not like It's not amazing. I would say for me, amazing was Mama. That was an amazing horror movie. That one came out not that long ago. That was really good. I'm also... Oh, I finished my knitting... What is it? Knitting stories? Knitting yarns, writers on knitting. I finished that. Still feel the same about it. Some of them, stories are good. Some of them were not so good. And then I'm also reading this book called The Croning, and I still have not quite figured out what it's supposed to be about. It's really good and it's really scary, but I'm not quite sure where it's going yet, I think, because I haven't read that far in. But the weird thing is, at the beginning, they kind of seem to be building upon a Rumpelstiltskin story, but then they move into something completely different. And so I'm guessing it's all going to tie together somewhere within the story, because the narrative is not going towards a fairy tale at this point. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because it is a really creepy and well-written book. And I'm also listening to Violin by Anne Rice in my car, and it's very, very sad and melancholy. I'm guessing she wrote this after the death of her, well, obviously after the death of her daughter, but I'm wondering if it was even after the death of her husband, because I didn't see what the date was, but there are a lot of parallels in the story, things she talks about that to me seem like they're parallels in her life. I know her daughter died of leukemia when she was very young, and that was really traumatizing for the family. And then her husband died, but I don't think her husband died that long ago. That's why I don't know if that has any basis in it. But I believe some of the things that happen in the story make me believe that she's basing this character on herself, and maybe some of the other characters that are in the story are based on people in her family. Very good, because I like the way she writes. Very good, but very sad. So I would not recommend reading that if you don't like sad, because it's pretty sad. And the other one I'm listening to right now is Herland, which is being done by Craftlit. And Herland is written by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And it's very interesting because I had never heard of it. So I was very surprised Craftlit was doing a book by an author that I hadn't heard of, and a book I hadn't heard of. Because usually, at least I've heard of the book, even if I've never read it. And it's very interesting. It's actually it's written by a woman, I think in the early 1900s, if I'm remembering correctly. And it's a land where there's no men. It's all women and children. And I don't even remember if there were any boys that were children. There might not be. I don't remember. I haven't gotten that far into it, but it's pretty interesting. And you follow 3 men who are explorers, and they hear about this land, and they say, we have to go. We're not going to tell anybody we're going, but we're going to go by ourselves. And boy, are they in for a surprise. So I'm thinking this one's pretty interesting. It's very different from the other books that I've listened to on Craftlit, but I'm enjoying it, especially because it's one I hadn't heard of before. So it's completely new and different to me. And, the person who won the Vesper Sock Yarn never contacted me, so I redrew. And Lemming 13, you are the winner of the Vesper Sock Yarn. This is in the Trick or Treat colorway. It's got blacks and oranges and yellows, so it's perfect for Halloween. And it is, let's see, it says hand wash, dry flat. It is, I think this is 100%, yes, 100% superwash merino, and it's 428 yards. So if you would PM me with your address, I believe your name is, you're Mel from the UK, Lemming 13, email me and tell me your address so that I can send this out to you. And the last thing, I feel like I'm just not all that organized lately, but I am very preoccupied with dyeing for the show that's in a couple of weeks. It's in the beginning of January. So I may not have as many knitted objects this time or next time, maybe I will next time, since I'm going to be going on vacation to visit family again in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of dyeing, so that's why I haven't had as much knitting to talk about. But I do have one new colorway, and this was fun. I kind of did this one for fun because I wanted to try a new way. I don't know if you call it a technique. I guess you would. A new dye technique, maybe. And I wanted it to be mostly white with splashes of color. So here it is. This is called Unicorn, and it's basically natural with fluorescent pink, fluorescent purple, and turquoise. And this one is on my sport base, which is the Witch base, and this is an extremely squishy base. It feels really, really nice. I'm very surprised no one has bought this yet. It's got 274 yards, so I don't know about you, but that's enough for me to make socks. But it's certainly enough to make a cowl. And yeah, this is Unicorn. My husband actually named this one because when I was rescanning it in the airport, yeah, I did in the airport. We rushed out. We were really in a hurry in the morning to get to the airplane to fly to Boston, and I had forgotten to wind this the day before. I had just dyed it, and I was dying to knit it up to see what it looked like. So in the airport, I opened the skein up, wrapped it around my suitcase handle, and I rolled it into a ball. And I knit a little swatch. And if you want to see what the swatch looks like, you can go and look on the website, because I did put it on the website. But that's pretty good for color, except that, well, they're actually brighter. You know that, just from what I tell you, that these colors are brighter than what they are showing up. It's really hard to get the neons to show. But in general, I've been pretty happy with the way stuff has been showing up since I changed my lighting. So that's my last thing I think that I wanted to talk about. And yes, in January I will be at the Yellow Rose Fiber Festival. I am looking forward to it. I am frantically dying for it. And I'm just really glad that you guys are in my group. Thank you. I'm very thankful for that. And I've really enjoyed the last year and a half of podcasting and getting to know everybody. And if you, this is one thing I meant to mention. I haven't mentioned it for a while. If you join the group, if you go ahead and introduce yourself in the introduction thread, from now on I will go ahead and welcome you, but also that's the thread that I draw from every time we reach a milestone, and right now we're at about 250 members. When we reach 300, I will draw again for a skein of my yarn. You get to pick one from the shop, anything you want, but you have to go and introduce yourself in the introduction thread in order to be eligible for that. So go introduce yourselves. You guys start chatter threads. You know, if you want to start a thread for anything in particular, or if you have questions, I still have that Thanksgiving what do you want to know thread up. Please go and ask a question there. I really appreciate it, and I will be talking to you guys soon. Everybody have a good Christmas. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. I know this can be a hard time of year for some people. You're in my prayers if this is a difficult time for you. And the rest of you, I hope that you get time to spend with your families. And I will talk to you guys soon. And don't forget to get busy knitting or get busy dyeing.